Of all the legions that bore Rome's scarlet banners into battle, there are none more enigmatic than the Ninth. From Caledonia's tempest-scourged moors to Hispania's shifting dunes, the Ninth Legion, Legio IX Hispana, marched with honor, vanished with secrecy, and left only questions behind. Their tale occupies a few centuries of bloodshed, honor, rebellion, and one of history's greatest vanishing acts. This is the full, untold history of Rome's Ninth Legion. The Ninth Legion's origins lie not in Britain, where their legend starts and finishes, but far away in the Roman Republic. The legion most likely was created around 65 BCE by Pompey Magnus in the strife-torn campaigns of Hispania, that rough western province which gave them their name, Hispana. These were the Republic's dying days, when generals purchased loyalty in silver and steel. The Ninth was hardened in this crucible, a unit of Roman citizens and battle-hardened provincials hardened by Iberian sunshine. The legion proved its mettle early enough, marching in brutal suppression of rebellious tribesmen in Hispania. Their discipline remained unbroken, a reflection of the Republic's growing power. By the time Julius Caesar launched his Gallic campaign in the 50s BCE, the Ninth had already made its reputation. Caesar, forever in need of loyal and efficient killers, brought the Ninth into his army. It was not the final time the Ninth found itself at the center of conflict that determined the shape of the empire. In Gaul, the Ninth fought valiantly in the Gallic Wars under Caesar. They stormed across rivers, besieged hill forts, and endured winter campaigns. When Caesar faced a mutiny in 49 BCE, it was the Ninth, to the very end loyal, that helped him march on Rome. Their loyalty would prove crucial in the civil war between Pompey and Caesar. Irony of ironies, that legion which marched once with Pompey now marched against Pompey. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Rome descended into a second civil war, and again the Ninth endured the chaos. They were eventually under the control of Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, who would eventually become Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Rome had transformed from republic to empire when the dust had settled. The battered and bruised Ninth Legion was at the forefront of this new world. As the empire expanded under Augustus, the Ninth Legion marched northwards into the dark and hostile woods of Germania. Their task was straightforward: pacify the frontier and tame the wild. But Germania was no conquered region. The native tribes, savages, cunning, and fiercely independent, struggled hard to hold them back. The Ninth, battle-hardened now in Iberia and Gaul, was tested in challenging terrain where conventional Roman tactics often fell short. The Romans survived but learned. They built roads, dug forts, and refined their tactics to ambush warfare. Together with other legions, they established the Limes, Rome's defensive wall along the Rhine. Their presence guaranteed Roman power in a region that would never yield completely. Augustus later dubbed westward again, and the Ninth was recalled home. By 43 CE, they were on the battlefield for the Emperor Claudius's most reckless campaign, the conquest of Britannia. Conquest of Britain was no hurry-up affair. The Ninth was among the earliest to arrive and encountered the angry resistance of the native Britons, the Catuvellauni tribe. The terrain was soggy, the weather harsh, and the inhabitants guerrilla warfighters. The Ninth pushed into the interior, building forts and settlements, Camulodunum, Verulamium, and Lindum. These were born of war and would later develop into Roman cities. But anything tested the Ninth more than Boudicca's rebellion, queen of the Iceni. In 60 or 61 CE, after several years of Roman tyranny and deception, Boudicca organized a gigantic rebellion against the occupying force. Her troops stormed Camulodunum and slaughtered thousands. The Ninth Legion, led by legate Quintus Petilius Cerialis, rode to the rescue but were ambushed en route. Exposed on the open plains, the Ninth was all but annihilated, its infantry slaughtered, its cavalry preserved only through flight. The loss had been colossal. The Ninth, Caesar's hammer in Gaul, had been laid low. Rome struck back. Governor Gaius Suetonius Paulinus put an end to Boudicca's rebellion at the Battle of Watling Street, and the Ninth was reconstituted with fresh men. Nevertheless, the shame of that loss lingered. The legion remained in Britain for decades, occupying position in the north as a watch against the tribes beyond Hadrian's projected wall. It was then, in the years between 70 to 120 CE, that the Ninth became lost. Records begin to vanish. Their last definite inscription was left behind in York, Iberacum, sometime in 108 CE. They appear to drop out of British history after that. They are not noted as being involved in the building of Hadrian's Wall. They drop out of the legion rolls. It's like they vanished into the mists on the other side of the northern border, consumed by war, insurgency, or silence. The disappearance of the Ninth Legion remains the greatest mystery of antiquity. From their final known deployment at Eberacum, York today, c. 108 CE, the trail runs cold. No Roman record, no inscription on a tombstone, no pompous afterword. For a legion once responsible for deciding Caesar's fate, the silence is chilling. Where did they go? One legend claims that the Ninth came to their end in Scotland, or to use the Romans' name for it, Caledonia. Hostile, mountainous, and unconquered, Caledonia was a perpetual thorn in Rome's side. It is some historians' belief that the Ninth marched north at some point after 108 CE on a punitive mission and never came back. Ambushed by Pictish clans in the unfriendly highlands, they may have been overpowered, too deep into enemy country, cut off from reinforcements, surrounded by as dangerous land as the warriors who inhabited it. This theory spawned the novel The Eagle of the Ninth and countless dramatizations. Archaeology yields little to support it, however. No mass grave, no legionary gear, no certain location of the battle. And if the legion had been destroyed, why did Rome not say nothing about it? The empire was not keen on admitting defeat, especially in distant provinces. Such a total loss could have been covered up to preserve morale and imperial prestige. Other historians argue that the Ninth did not perish in Britain either. Shreds of evidence rather suggest that they may have been posted east. A stone epigraph at Nijmegen, Netherlands, dated between 120 and 130 CE, refers to Legio IX, maybe in a temporary posting. Some assume that the legion was then transferred to the Eastern Front, where things were heating up against Parthia. If that was the case, they may have died and fought on foreign sand rather than British ground. This hypothesis is supported by the fact that there is no record to specifically mention the legion lost in Britain. Roman military administration, usually exact, remains strangely silent. Perhaps the Ninth wasn't lost, merely disbanded unobtrusively, amalgamated into other units, or redesignated as another legionary number. The Antonine or Hadrianic reforms may have led them to be erased from rolls, but not from existence. There is also a more sinister option: civil war. Morale in northern Britannia had always been brittle. Bad weather, unpaid wages, shoddy equipment, these could push a legion into revolt. Did the Ninth turn against Rome? If they did, Rome would have invoked the ultimate punishment, damnatio memoriae, the removal of their name, record, and reputation. Death worse than death to Roman minds. Whatever their fate, the Ninth left nothing but silence behind them. Later, legions stationed in Britannia, the 6th Victrix and 20th Valeria Victrix among them, filled the gap. Yet the spirit of the Ninth lingered on every fortress and stone road that they had helped build. Their legend passed to myth, their intrigue augmented by their disappearance. The empire moved forward, but the ghosts of the Ninth haunt the moors. Years since the Ninth Legion vanished, its name stalked on the edge of history like a ghost. They had been Caesar's hammer, Britannia's shield, and the builders of imperial fortresses. Now they were something darker, a legend without a tomb, a legion spoken of in whispers. Without fact, legend grew. Commentators all across Europe, ancient and modern, began to reinterpret the Ninth, not as a warrior, but as a spectre of a discarded empire. In the Renaissance, when humanist scholars began digging through Roman history's old bones, the Ninth appeared like an old wives' tale in ancient texts. Historians pored over documents and military rosters, debating their fate. Some believed they were gone. Others asserted that they had simply been renamed. The doubt only fueled the intrigue. The Ninth was a mystery, a blank spot in Roman history, where myth and speculation could gain traction. New archaeology brought tools to the mystery. York, Nijmegen, and Hadrian's Wall excavations yielded sporadic clues. Tiles with the Ninth's emblem, coins, and architectural inscriptions. But they informed them little. At York, a fortress barracks was dedicated to them. In Nijmegen, a fragment hinted they marched by. But if these were expressions of a surviving legion or a lingering administrative residue, no one could be certain. The evidence was still tantalizingly short. In the 20th century, literature and the cinema adopted the Ninth as a legend. Rosemary Sutcliffe's The Eagle of the Ninth introduced their story to millions of readers. Her novel, fictional as it was based on actual doubt, fantasized a Roman youth searching for his father's lost standard over the wall. It capitalized on an extremely powerful truth. Human beings are drawn to that which has been lost. The Ninth became not just a legion, but an enigma of identity and recall. The Ninth also found a niche in modern British identity. In a country once overthrown by the Romans, the notion of a Roman legion lost in northern fogs appealed to something more fundamental. The struggle of empire and insurrection, of civilization and wilderness. To some, the Ninth was the price of conquest. To others, it was a nostalgic symbol of doomed nobility. Their fate wasn't so much Roman, it was British legend dressed up in a toga. Today, the Ninth continues to leave people curious. Documentaries, books, podcasts, and academic conferences retell their story year after year, not because of new findings, but because the silence is more compelling. The Ninth Legion, through their disappearance, achieved a kind of immortality. They are no longer just soldiers. They became an enigma that cannot be unraveled, a metaphor of how even the greatest empires can leave behind haunting silences in the stonework of history. Although they are not there, the Ninth Legion made their mark on the land. Walk through York today and the presence remains, not in bones or pennants, but in stone. Fortress walls they built are still part of the city's foundation. The centuries-worn multangular tower remains standing today, a silent guardian of the past. Theirs were the hands that carved it, their sweat that set each stone. Although centuries have buried them, their legacy is literally under one's feet. Where the ancient Roman roads once marched beneath the Ninth, weeds now curve in the breeze. Inscriptions and remnants of their camps, bricks stamped Legio IX Hispana, occasionally surface through centuries of soil. They are not souvenirs of grandeur or statues of magnitude, but simple artifacts. Shards, nails, tiles, forgiven tools. These artifacts tell us of an individual who worked as much as they fought. Builders, not conquerors. The men of the Ninth worked to create the infrastructure upon which Rome relied to sustain its empire. Hadrian's Wall, at times mistakenly believed to be the limit of Roman power, is likely their most lasting legacy. Even if it's uncertain whether the Ninth ever manned it, they certainly made it necessary. Their conflicts with the northern tribes, their possible annihilation, may be all that was left to warn the empire. The North can be defended without a wall. So the Ninth became masters of foresight. The wall may not bear their name, but it is a part of their legacy. Ninth's artifacts are among the most valued pieces of Roman archaeology. Nothing to do with their rarity, but everything to do with the question that surrounds them. Museums display even the slightest fragment proudly. A coin, a broken weapon, a tile, in each and every one of them is the silent hope that the next piece will tell the rest of the tale. It is that one other hint that will come out of the earth and make guessing truth. Or perhaps the beauty lies in not knowing. To reenactors, historians, and Rome enthusiasts of today, the Ninth has turned into a symbol of enigma. Some legions lived and died honorably. Others died honorably. But the Ninth disappeared. And in disappearing, they were a canvas upon which each succeeding generation imposes its own meaning. They are a tale of empire and decline, of hubris and fall, of ambition and humility. In the end, the Ninth reminds us that history is not just what we know, but also what we wish to know. So when the wind winds down Britain's valleys, or breathes through the pages of old history books, It may just be carrying on its breath, the dying breath of the ninth. Not lost, not forgotten, but waiting. Waiting for us to listen quietly. Waiting for us to walk the same streets. Waiting for us to remember.